Tottenham's defense has not been up to the mark this entire season. So 18 yards is going to look at some of the players that Tottenham should be buying, centre backs, right backs and left backs to come in and improve the shaky defense. So Raihan, going straight to you, who are who are some players that Tottenham should be looking at?
Like you said, I think the only defender that can credit himself with playing well this season is Sergio Reguilon. Um, and everyone else in that defensive line is at risk of um, losing their place next season. Maybe even barring Joe Rodon, he's played well when he's played, and Tanganga's played well when he's played. But they're obviously players for the future, not players that can immediately take us to the next level. So we'll start with the right back because that's a sort of shorter conversation.
Right.
It seems like Spurs are going to entertain offers for Aurier. We almost sold him last season, but he ended up staying. So he's probably going to be leaving for about 15 million, 10 to 15 million. Obviously, lots of questions about Doherty and will he stay? He's not played well at all. I could even see him leaving because we've got Tanganga as a right back, but I think possibly only one of Aurier or Doherty will leave. But I won't be too surprised if both leave. So obviously, talking about incomings, like I've mentioned to you earlier, even last summer we were in for a new right back, but until the last minute we didn't know it was Doherty, and it sort of came out of the blue. I think it'll be a similar situation this season because especially at this point, I'm not too sure. There aren't too many reports on which are the players that we're sort of heavily linked with at the right back position. But if we were willing to spend the money in about the 20 to 30 million range, then I'd look at Max Aarons, I'd look at Nordi Mukiele of RB Leipzig. So those are the two players I'd have on my list. But those are players that are expensive. So let's see how the summer develops. We don't have much information on this on the right back position, but expect a new right back at Spurs and possibly expect one, if not both, the senior right backs that are there at the moment to leave.
Not talking about the centre back position now, from what I've heard, a lot of big clubs are in for a centre back in the summer transfer window. But one name that I keep hearing who's linked to Spurs since I think last season is Skriniar of Inter Milan. So what are your thoughts on not just him, but this entire situation, which involves a lot of players who a lot of clubs would love to have in their respective teams?
So obviously, like you said, and we've discussed this many times before in our transfer videos and on the podcast, is that like a lot of clubs want centre backs.
Right.
Liverpool seem to be signing Konate from Leipzig. Bayern just signed Upamecano.
Upamecano.
Upamecano. Koundé is very highly rated, and there are teams that are going to go for him. Chelsea's possibly looking at one. Barcelona's just signed Eric Garcia. Lots of teams are going to go for centre backs. But Spurs, if there was one team that you would say, if all players were fit who still need the new centre backs, it's Spurs. Obviously, if you were looking at injuries, then it would be Liverpool. But if all players were fit, you'd be saying, Spurs need new centre backs. So for me, like you said, Skriniar was someone we were really in talks with last season. Almost signed him. We were willing to pay 35. They wanted about 45. And we sort of didn't end up signing him. And we went for Joe Rodon, who's seen as sort of a very talented centre back, not as the immediate Skriniar alternative, but someone we've signed for the long term. He's still very young. But coming back to Skriniar, it's not helped Spurs' cause that he's been a regular in Conte's starting 11 and he's back in the mix. Earlier, Conte didn't really like playing him. So now obviously his price, in my opinion, would have gone up by at least 10 to 15, maybe 20 million. So we're looking at now in the range of about 50 to 65 million. Which, if Spurs really wanted, with the number of players that I think will leave, they could pay. But if we don't go for Skriniar, someone we can look at, and possibly two players that we can get in instead of one. would be Vestergaard and Sven Botman. Vestergaard, as we know, had quite a good season. First, especially good first half of the season with Southampton. They're obviously struggling now, but he's a quality player. Big experience in the Premier League. So he's someone I would definitely look at. Won't be as expensive as the sort of more younger premium centre backs, but can still do a really, really good job. Sven Botman also won't be as expensive, maybe around 30 million. Playing for Lille, doing really, really well. So these are the sort of three I have on my mind. Obviously, there's a whole dearth of quality in this position that's available, so this situation could evolve. But I would say I would see us, if we really, really wanted to show some intent, going for Skriniar. I don't think that will happen now because, Inter are in a position to say, give us 70, give us 65, and Spurs aren't going to pay that, especially now. So I could see Spurs possibly going for Botman or Botman and Vestergaard both, depending on who leaves from the centre back region in our team. So those would be my main points for the defense. So then that would put Spurs in the position of. So I'll just talk about who will be in the squad then in the defensive positions. So we'd have Loris, Hart, and Alfie Whiteman, who's a young player at goalkeeper. We'd have a new centre back in, I would probably say, the Botman or Vestergaard, starting with probably the Sanchez or Toby Alderweireld. And we'd have Rodon as a backup, and one of Sanchez or Toby as a backup, or even Rodon could be the starting centre back next season. Out of the centre backs that will stay, it's pretty much a toss-up. All of them are in the mix to be starting next season. It's about who stakes the claim over preseason and the next 10 games of this season. Tanganga can also obviously cover at centre back if we're in an injury crisis. At left back, Reguilon is obviously a nailed-on starter. Unless I don't expect it, but unless he somehow leaves for Madrid again, if they trigger the buyback clause, then we'd possibly be in the conversation. You'd like that, huh?
You love that.
then we'd possibly be in the conversation for a new left back. We've obviously got Ryan Sessegnon coming back from loan at Hoffenheim. He's had a good spell, but Mourinho really likes Davies.
Right.
Sessegnon offers a lot of similar traits to Reguilon. So I think Mourinho would like to keep Davies on for another season. And you could possibly see Sessegnon going back out on loan either immediately at the start of the season or waiting for 6 months, depending on how we're placed in Europe. Because if we have to play Europa League, then, the sort of younger players stay for the first half of the season because they get more opportunities. At right back, like I said, we're probably going to get one new right back. We're going to have Tanganga, who in my opinion will be the second choice right back next season. And then you'd probably have one of Doherty or Aurier competing with Tanganga for the second choice place. And just to cap off sort of defensive positions, you have Pierre Højbjerg, who's been an absolute bargain by last summer, who's going to be the starting central defensive midfielder, and Oliver Skip as cover in this position, who's having a fantastic year at Norwich. So that's it for the defensive positions, and obviously in the next part we'll touch upon the sort of more forward players.
So defense being one of the most sought after positions in the transfer market, I believe Spurs are going to have, they won't have their work cut out, and so let's see where they go from there. So thank you for watching this video. Please follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and if you like this video, stay tuned because we have some interesting content coming your way. Thank you.